Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the FIDE World Cup 2025. I don't know how voraciously you guys are following everything that's been happening up to this point, but some incredible names have already left the World Cup. Wesley So got eliminated, Hans Niemann got eliminated, Yanni Pomniši got eliminated, Arvind Tabaram got eliminated. Those are all favorites to win pretty much any matchup, and yes, they are already out of the game. And they didn't even play round one. They were seeded directly into round two, and then they just lost. So it was a fairly quick trip to India. But what are you going to do? And I don't think we've seen the last of the surprises the World Cup has in store for us. So let's check it out. We're starting it off with Nodirbek Abdusattorov, 27-50 against José Martínez Alcántara. We've been hearing quite a lot about him and his great successes, over the board and in online chess. And this game is pretty wild. So let's dive straight into it. Nodirbek with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to d6. He opts for the Pir's defense. d4, we have pawn to e5 and knight to f3. We have captures, knight to f6, and knight to c3, followed by bishop to e7. So pretty standard now, transposing into the Philidor variation of the exchange variation of the Philidor. That is usually met with bishop to e2. Here we have bishop to f4 and castles kingside. We have queen to d2, knight to c6, preparing to capture on d4, and just castles queenside. We have captures, and pawn to a6. Now we have castles on opposite sides of the board, so you know that Nodirbek will be pushing on the king side, and José Martínez will be pushing on the queen side. f3, pawn to b5, we have pawn to g4 and pawn to c5. So everything perfectly normal, nothing really incredible happening here. José Martínez even playing incredibly fast. He's still up with the full hour and 30 minutes on the clock. Nodirbek has burned 8 minutes of his clock. Queen e3 and the immediate pawn to b4. It has all been played before. However, there is one game where knight to a4 was played. Here we have knight to d5, and it is now, as of move 13, that we have a completely new game. Okay, knight captures on d5. We have rook captures on d5 and bishop to e6, attacking Nodirbek's rook on d5. But Nodirbek doesn't move the rook, and why would he? There's a pawn hanging on a2, so he just plays bishop to c4, and he says you can have the rook. My light square bishop will slow down your attack on the queen side, and then I'm going for the attack on the king side. So found over the board, we could say an incredibly lucrative idea. Bishop captures, and rook to c8, pawn to g5, and pawn to c4. So a battle of pushing. King to b1 and queen to a5. Okay, so king to b1 has been played. The a2 pawn is not hanging, but still you have to calculate every move. b3, c3. Is there anything else that black can do? So just pawn to h4. Nodirbek continues with his plan. That is probably h5, g6, or so you'd think. I mean, there is a bishop on d5, so it makes sense. But here we have rook to c5. It's sort of a slip. The position is still fine, but you should start right away with c3. And then after h5, c captures on b2. And after g6, we get some sort of a complete mess of a position. You can close with h6, g captures. And now you don't really have the option of not capturing, because either you go to h8 and then you capture on h6 with the bishop, or king h7, and then you can bring the queen to g1, and still it's going to be impossible for black to survive. Queen check, bishop captures, and it's game over quickly. So you will have to give it up, and then let's say captures, pawn to e5, and good luck making sense of what's happening here. The engine says yes, it's perfectly fine. 0, 0, 0. Any move you play is 0, 0, 0. But of course you guys would find that one that loses terribly. But after h4, rook to c5. It's a move that doesn't really do all that much, and it allows Nodirbek to make his attack happen even more quickly. But Nodirbek now doesn't start with h5. Rather, he goes queen to d4, which it's, again, hard to say why. But yeah, these are incredible players, so obviously they have their reasons. Rook f to c8, doubling up on the c file, and pawn to h5. Rook captures on d5, eliminating one of the strongest pieces on the board, that bishop on d5. E captures on d5, so sort of creating a wall against the black queen, so you can, just go about your kingside attack without interruptions, and the bishop to f8. And this bishop on f8, although it it seems like it's not doing all that much, hitting that pawn on d6 and maybe, you know, defending the king side a little bit. It's actually the star of the game, or rather it will be the star of the game, because here Nodirbek plays pawn to h6, which it's hard to realize why. He has an hour on the clock, and g6 is for someone with Nodirbek's ability to calculate is just straight out winning. Because how do you play? The main reason why it's better than h6 is that you don't have queen c5 as black here, because then you just capture on f7. Let's say king captures, queen e4 comes with tempo. Let's say you defend, queen to e6 again with check, king to h8, h6 now with some bishop e3, bishop d4, and okay, resigns. Or if after g6 you start capturing, let's say h captures, and now we start attacking on the queen side, doesn't really do anything. A captures on b3, c captures, and there is nothing here for black. There's no way to organize anything. And if f6, you even have some tricky ideas like bishop captures on d6, and then queen h4, and then whatever black does just gets checkmated. This is the threat of mate in one. King f8, queen to h8 check, king e7. You're going to go queen captures on g7 with check, king d8, rook to h8 with check, and now once you give up the bishop, rook captures on f8 will be checkmate. So g6 it's hard to find even one useful move for black. But okay, Nodirbek plays pawn to h6. It's the World Cup. You know, the tension is probably even visible. We have queen to c5, the move that would not be possible had the g6 been played, and queen to e4. We have pawn to g6. Seems like it's similar, but there's a black pawn on g6 instead of a white pawn, so it's not the same. Bishop b3, queen b5, and bishop to d4. It looks really great, and in fact, Nodirbek is winning unless José Martínez finds that one move that saves him the game. So could you do it? What is the one move that saves the game? Because we all know what the white's threat is. You want to go queen f4, queen f6, and queen obviously not that. Queen to h8 checkmate. So what is the one move that stops that? Of course, easily, rook to e8. And now the point is, if queen to f4, which was played in the game, you're threatening queen f6. Now you have pawn to f5. And there's no good way to reply to this, because whether you capture en passant or not, there's just no way to break through. I mean, all the squares are covered by black. So it has been played g captures on f6, but now queen captures on d5. Again, what can Nodirbek do? He plays pawn to b3. We have king f7. Now, José Martínez even using Nodirbek's two pawns as a shield, so nothing can touch the black king. Because you can always sacrifice material to go through your opponent's pawns, but you can never remove your own pawns from the board. If you could, chess would be a very tricky game. Queen g4, we have queen to f5, offering a queen trade, and queen to g2. Nodirbek declines. We have pawn to c3 and pawn to a4. Hard to say whether necessary or unnecessary, but Nodirbek played it. We have b captures on a3, king to a2, and now pawn to a5, and the position is actually still very much playable. With queen f2, and by very much playable, I mean you have to find queen f2, otherwise it's not very much playable. And then a move like pawn to a4 can be met with bishop b captures on a4, and it looks ugly, but it's playable. However, after a5, Nodirbek, I guess he felt that he has to go for a win with the white pieces. Played rook h4, wants to get rook e4 in, but now his position is lost. Now José Martínez is winning, but only if you realize what's the problem with rook to h4. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for José Martínez while I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, because to actually figure this out, you have to realize that it's the bishop on f8 that delivers checkmate. And I know now that I say such a thing, you're probably like, okay, you know, whatever you're on, let's have it. But yeah, it's the bishop on f8 that's the star of this attack, because now pawn to a4 actually wins. And the reason for that is that the same move that was perfectly fine with the rook on h1, with the rook on h4 loses terribly to queen e6 check. And now if you go to a3, then you open up this bishop and okay, you get checkmated. But if you go down the board, then the black queen can use the back rank as the rook is no longer on h1. And you're not interested in winning the rook on h4, or no, after king to a2, just rook b8. You're threatening queen b1 check, followed by queen b2 checkmate. And after rook to h1, sort of attacking the queen and getting the rook out of harm's way, there's the simple rook b2 check, king captures, and pawn to d5, a discovery checkmate. Or rather, you will block with the bishop, and then bishop captures, and c5 is checkmate. So, I mean, Nodirbek missed it, but on the other hand, who wouldn't? I mean, it's a pretty crazy sequence of moves. And like in the previous game that I've covered via short, José Martínez, where he found almost 5 consecutive brilliant moves in a row, here also he doesn't fall short. But now, after a4, Nodirbek realizes that this will not work, and he plays bishop captures on c3, which, okay, covers e1, covers b2, it does make sense, but now a captures on b3, and you really have no good moves here. If you play c captures on b3, just queen d3, attacks the bishop, and the threat is rook e2 check, which wins the white queen. So you cannot avoid heavy material loss here. On the other hand, if king to b1, pretty much anything wins, just a2 check, king b2, you can even give up this pawn, promote to a queen, you get bc2, you bring the queen wherever, rook a8, wherever, or, you know, the queen on the a file, the rook on the b file, all in all, you checkmate white very easily. So instead, king captures on b3 was played by Nodirbek, rook to b8 with check, we have rook to b4, maybe this was Nodirbek's plan of defense all along, getting this rook to counter the black rook, but now queen e6 check. We have king captures on a3 and pawn to d5. Again, the dark square bishop comes alive and wins the game. Queen to f1, pawn to d4 even, winning some style points, and he was in this position on move 39 that Nodirbek Abdusattorov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once the bishop moves, let's say bishop to d2, it's you can do whatever. You can capture on the spot, but also rook a8 check looks way cooler. King to b2, bishop captures on b4, bishop captures, and now finally queen to a2 with check. King has to go to c1, queen a1 check, king to d2. You win the queen on f1, and in a couple of moves, you checkmate the white king. So yeah, brilliant stuff by José Martínez Alcántara, taking down one of the favorites to win the entire event, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, with the black pieces. So tomorrow, Nodirbek has to win on demand with black, otherwise he's out of the FIDE World Cup. I mean, José Martínez just eliminates a monster. Brilliant stuff by José Martínez. If you haven't seen the previous video that I've shown, check it out. I mean, what he found was absolutely incredible, but that was a blitz game, so I didn't, and it was a 5-minute blitz game, so I didn't make a full video from it. But yeah, here he just takes down Nodirbek with black, and that is something, you know, way different. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. First game we're showing from round 3. A lot more to come. I would like to thank Samuel Kane, Francisco Santana, Deepak Gangadaran, Udo Brandt, and Eddie Sphere for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you still haven't, download Lotus Chess. First link in the description below, and prepare for every game to play like Bobby Fischer. You'll see what I mean by it. See you soon.